The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Yeah, hello everybody. So we had seen how to use SQL and create a basic web app in the last class. So today we will see the same thing in a little more detail. We will use a new library called Sequelize, which is basically a ORM, object relational mapping library. We will see how what an ORM library helps you do, and we will create a more detailed example. So we'll try to build something like a e-commerce store, a shopping kind of website. Okay, and we will make a better UI also. Last time we just had a very simple UI, so create something using Bootstrap, make it responsive. So I hope everybody has got MySQL installed. I mean, in last class we did cover it, right? So you should have MySQL installed already, and if it is not running, so make sure that it is running. So usually MySQL is available as a service, so you can generally start it. So if MySQL is not started, in that case, you will not be able to use it from Express. Okay, just make sure that your MySQL service is started. Um, in the last class, I told you how to start it on different operating systems. So, for example, if you are on Linux, it would be uh, sudo service MySQL start, and if you are on Mac, then there would be a settings for MySQL from where you can start it. And if you're on Windows, you can go to the services inside Task Manager and start MySQL. Okay, just make sure it's running, and we'll create a database and a user for our current app as well. Okay. So first, I'm just gonna create a database and a user. Okay. So name of my database is shopping DB or yep, shop DB. Let's say. Okay, and create user shopper identified by. So this is my password. Make sure you do all of these commands as root. So as root, you create the database, create the user, the password, and grant it all the privileges that is required. That's all that we need to do from the command line in the MySQL terminal. Nothing else. We can just simply exit. Okay. So now we're just going to start writing our Express app the way we have been doing till now. We all know how the usual steps. Okay, so we'll start with npm install Express body parser. We don't need that. We didn't need an Express. Let's just start with Express for now. Then we will need a library called Sequelize. So we'll just after we make the basic structure of the app, I'm just going to show how to use Sequelize. Okay. I forgot the npm init. Sorry. Okay, so how we're going to make it is that we will create the front end and the back end separately from each other, like we had done in the second app in the last class. If you remember that we were using an API where data was traveling in the form of JSON. Okay, so we will basically submit data from the front end using jQuery using $.get and $.post requests, which are basically AJAX requests. Okay, and we will simply submit data in the form of JSON from the front end to the backend, and the backend would also respond with data in form of JSON to the front end, right? Uh, we will not be using HBase in this app that we're gonna build right now. Okay, so front end and back end will be completely separate, and if you want, you can even run the front end on a separate computer, the back end on a separate computer. It's that kind of a project that we're going to build. Mostly these days in the modern web development, most of the times websites are built in this way only. The back end and the front end are very independent from each other. They work via an API. There are certain URLs on which if you send a request, you get certain data, but HTML files are not created by the backend. Okay. So we'll create a folder for public. Okay. And we'll make this accessible on say app.use. Okay, let's add a file here. Let's add index.html. Let's have some HTML5 content inside it. Okay, so also some task if you want to run like frequently, if you want to run some particular command, then you can use the script setup inside npm. What you can do is go to package.json, add a script like this, for example start. What does the start script do? It does node server.js. Okay, so you can add a start script here, and we can run a task like this, npm start. Okay, uh, you see, npm run as when we do npm start from Visual Studio Code, it basically does node server.js. This thing it does, and then you can see server started on this URL. So let's visit that URL. Uh, there we go. As you can see, the index.html file in our public folder is visible here. So I think this much part is clear to all of you. It's simple stuff. I'll just put it on a separate desktop. Okay, and we can always stop the task. Okay, now what we're gonna do is we will use a library called Sequelize, and what Sequelize does is you don't need to write SQL anymore like we had been doing in the last class. What we did was we were writing SQL. We were writing SQL in form of strings, and then those strings were getting executed via the MySQL library. So Sequelize allows you to create simply objects. So here's an example. So what this example says is that you can create a user like the, you can define a user class like this. Okay, so Sequelize.define user, which has username and birthday, and then you can use this function user.create, and this user.create function creates new users. Okay, so basically you use a object oriented interface. Okay, so you basically create a class, which means it's similar to creating a table on the database, and every object of that class is similar to creating rows in that database. Okay, so when you're using an ORM, and ORM is a concept that is not specific to Node.js. ORMs exist in other languages and other platforms as well. ORMs, that's why the name is Object Relational Mapper. So it means that it maps object oriented programming to this relational programming, that is the way you write SQL queries. Okay, so basically the idea is that say we have this table, and say we call this table as users, and each user has a say ID, a name, and some age, and some other details, for example say where he lives in that city, something like that. Okay, so what we do is we create a concept of having a class called users. Okay, so we have say a class user, and this class has got say int id, okay, and int age, and say string name. So I'm just writing pseudocode, okay, I'm not writing it any particular language, okay, and say string city. So So what an ORM does is, as soon as we define a class like this, it takes this thing and it defines this kind of a table when we do it. And then every time we do something like say u1 equal to new user, say new user with certain values, say id 1 and age 20 and name say Arnav, and say city Delhi. So when we write something like this, it this u1 is going to end up being a new row here, where id would be 1, age would be 20, city would be Delhi, and name would be Arnav. Okay, and then if I do something like u1 dot age plus plus, it would automatically go to the database and change this value from 20 to 21. Okay, so basically you are using a object oriented interface, but the actual actions are getting performed in a SQL database in form of SQL queries. So this is what ORM does. It helps you avoid writing any form of SQL at all, and lets you simply create classes and objects, and it will internally it will handle the database for you. Okay, so when you're creating big projects, ORMs are very helpful, because writing SQL queries in form of strings across your entire project creates a lot of mess and also creates possibility of a lot of errors. So, and it is something that is very common. A lot of projects and a lot of people use this kind of a thing. They are basically dealing with classes and objects which have to finally be saved into a database in form of rows. So ORMs are going to handle all of that for you. So let's see how we can use Sequelize. So to use Sequelize, I will do is I will create a database file first separately. Okay. So we will create a DB file. Say db.js. Okay. Not inside public, outside it. Okay. Yeah. And we will do so first. Let's install Sequelize. Let's make sure we install Sequelize. So npm I Sequelize. Also, when we are using Sequelize, what happens is that we can use Sequelize with a lot of databases. Okay, so we can use Sequelize with MySQL, which is the most popular SQL database, but we can also use Sequelize with Postgres, SQLite 3, and Microsoft SQL Server. So we have to install Sequelize, and then we have to install one of these four things, okay, depending on what our database is. Okay, so our database is a MySQL database, so we will be installing this MySQL 2 package to work with that. Okay, so we'll do npm I MySQL 2. Right, then this is how we configure Sequelize to use our database. Okay, so how do we do it? We create a new Sequelize instance with the name of the database, the username, the password, the host which it is going to connect to, which will be localhost for our case, the dialect which would tell which kind of database it is supposed to use, and a connection pool object which tells how many connections Sequelize can keep open at a time. Okay. Um, so let's start with that. So we'll do const Sequelize equal to require Sequelize, and then we'll do const db equal to new Sequelize, and we give database name, right? database name is shop db, username then and password. So username is shopper and password is shop pass, like we had created just now. Then we have to give some options here, like host. Our host is localhost. We have to provide dialect. Dialect tells what kind of database. So MySQL is the type of database that we're using. And we can have a pool object which tells how many minimum connections. So 0 connections if there is no request happening, so minimum 0 connections, maximum 5 connections. And you can set it to a lower value, which would ensure that your RAM usage on your computer is less. But if you set a higher value, then it will be able to process your SQL queries faster. Okay. So all of these, there are default values available. Also, you can ignore this object also if you want. Okay. So this creates a database. Then what we want to do is we will create some items that we require to put in our database. So we will start off with uh, const user equal to db.define. Okay, and in the db.define function, the first term that goes is the name of the table. Okay, so we are creating a class user. User will become a class, and so the first thing is the name of the table, and the second thing is a collection of all the columns that it will have. Okay, so by default, all databases in Sequelize have an ID, which is a auto increment primary key. But if you want to explicitly define that, you can still do that. You can do it like this: id is of type Sequelize dot uh, integer, uh, auto increment is true, and primary key is true. Okay, so id, and then every user would have a name. The type of name is generally, you write it like this: type Sequelize dot string. One thing Sequelize allows you to shorten is that if a column has only the type defined and other properties are not defined, like there could be properties like the name is not null, so you can write allow null false, which means that name cannot be false. Okay, so there's a user ID, name, and I think that's it. Then we will create another type of table, const products, product equal to db dot define products. So product should also have an ID like this. Okay, it should have a product should have a name. Product name would be of string type. So if a column only has a type and nothing else defined, so we can simply write name is Sequelize dot string. Okay, so either we can create name is equal to an object where all the properties are defined, or you can do name is simply Sequelize string, which means it will consider name to be a column which has only strings inside. Okay. Okay, and then what we have is say it will have a manufacturer, would also be Sequelize dot string. So I think this we should not allow nulls. Okay, manufacturer should be a string, and it should have a price. So price would be of type number is basically it can contain floating values. Okay, or you can use Sequelize.float. Okay, Sequelize.float means it will accept decimal values as well. Okay, and price should also have a default value. So you should not allow null values. Allow null is false. Default value is 0, 0.0. Okay, so I think we have products which have name, manufacturer, and price. I think that makes sense. Then we will export these things. We will do exports equal to module dot exports equal to so we will export the user class and the product class from here. Okay, then we will start creating our API. So we'll start with a folder called say root. Inside root we will have API. Okay, and inside API we'll have a root for stuff like this. We will create a new file for users.js, and we'll have one for products, new file products.js. Okay, and we will have a index root here. So the API index would have something like this. It will have const root equal to require express dot router, call it and create a root. Then exports equal to module dot exports equal to, we will export the root here. Okay, and we will do this thing root dot use slash users require dot slash users, and root dot use slash products will have products. Okay, then we will take this API route in our server. So here we'll write app.use a slash API is require dot slash root slash API. Oh, sorry, dot slash. This folder should be renamed to root slash API. So when we require a root slash API, it goes to root just to rename this. Sorry, there's some problem in renaming. So yeah, dot slash root slash API. So when we write require in Node.js, so if we write require, say dot slash x, or we write simply say x. Okay, so it will try to find x dot JS file first. If it does not find that, so then it will try to find x dot JSON file. If it does not find that, it will try to find a folder called x inside which there is an index.js. Okay, so x can mean x.js, it could also mean x.json, and it could also mean x slash index.js. Okay, so if there is roots and inside that there is API, inside that there is an index.js, we can simply require that as require root slash API like this. Okay, so our API has been required. Okay, right. Now let's start off with writing our API part. So what we will do is, in the users API, okay, we will create a root here, const root equal to so when someone sends a get request here, we want to send an array of all users from our database here. Okay, to do that, what we would want is to get hold of const user equal to require dot slash db dot user. Okay, so we are basically requiring the user object from this db .js, and here user. So what we can do here is, on this user that we have required, we can do user dot find all. User dot find all can find all the users, and if we do not provide any where clause, then it basically finds all the users available in the database. Okay, so this is how find all works. Model dot find all where, something like this. Okay, now where clause, we don't want a where clause, we want to get all the users, and this works using the promise API. Okay, so we had discussed how the promise API works. So we will simply have we will call dot then, and inside then we will get all the users here. Okay, and then we will have a catch when we are not able to find any users. Okay, so if we are unable to find anything, or if the database has a problem, or if there is some error, in that case we will set a status code of 500, and we will send a message that says error, could not retrieve users. Okay, and otherwise what we are going to do is, we will do res dot status 200 dot send, and we will send these users that we found out. Okay. After that, what we are going to do is we will create another root dot post on this path rec res, and since we are handling a post request, we'll just go back to our server.js and make sure that we are handling post requests properly, JSON bodies and URL encoded bodies. So app.use express.json and app.use express.url encoded extended true. Okay, there we go. Now here we expect the rec to have name and a name in it, so we will create a new user. How do we do that? We do it using user.create. How does user.create work? So user.create works in this way. It takes a new user object. Okay. Now, what does the user object have is that when I'm creating a new user, I need to provide it with ID and a name. Now, ID, even if I do not provide, it will auto increment it. So I do not have a problem with that. Name is what I need to provide because nulls are not allowed. So user.create. And here what I will do is I will put name, and we will fetch it from rec.body.name. Okay. And then after that has been done, you can just write it here also then it creates a new user. So we can do res dot status. So generally 201 is the status for things getting created. Dot send. So we'll send the newly created user back in the response, and when we have an error, in that case we will do res dot status 5 dot send could not add new if there is some error because of any reason. Okay. One thing we need to make sure here is that our database gets created because we have written what the tables we want in our database. Now to make sure the database gets created, we need to add a line here, db.sync. Okay, and this is also a promise, so we can add something like this dot then, and here we can add a console line, console.log, and we can write here database has been created, or database has been synced. Okay, and catch error creating database. Okay, so let's go and run our app. We'll do node server.js, and as soon as we run that, we have an error here. The error was that, like you can see, the error says something like this: requires a middleware function, but got a nothing basically, because in server we had required API, and API had required products, and products did not export a router. So let's just make sure it does that. Okay. So in users, that is already being done here. There is no error in the users file. Let's run it again. Node server.js. Now, when we start this, you will see something very interesting in our logs. Are you able to read some SQL commands here? As you can see, some SQL commands have run. Create table if not exist users, ID integer auto increment, name varchar 255 not null, and then okay. So how is this? Why is this create table command running here? That's because when we do db.sync, okay. So Sequelize automatically creates that database if it does not exist. Now, obviously, this table we had not created ourselves. The first thing is, if you go to the database, if I open up my database, so MySQL U shopper p and use shopdb. Okay, so show tables, there is products and users tables, and you can see users has ID integer, name, varchar, created at, updated at, key is primary key, and it's an auto increment type. Similarly, describe products. So products have been created. There is ID, name, and manufacturer. So you can see that tables have been created for us, though we did not need to write the create table command ourselves. Okay. Now the interesting part comes. So I will just go to Postman. Yeah. So in Postman, what I'm going to do is send a request to HTTP localhost colon 2678 API slash users. And when we send a get request there, you get anything? So see, we are getting an empty array. That's because there are no users available right now. Okay. So let me just save this as a collection. Then let me just send a post request to the same endpoint, and in my body I'm gonna add name, and I'm gonna add okay. So we'll just send this post request to API/users with name Kumar inside it. We send that. As soon as we send that, we get an object in return, ID1 name Kumar. Okay. So let's send another post request like this. Okay. This time with a different name. Okay. And here we go. So we get ID2 name Neha like that. Now let's go to our original GET request and we send this GET request again. You see there are two users now, Kumar and Neha, like this. Fine. So as you can see, we have created an interface to add new users and see a list of existing users. Let us now build something similar for the products. Okay. So let's go and create something similar for the products. So we will require const product equal to require dot db dot product, right? We'll create a endpoint for root dot get slash root dot post. So if anybody is following along with me, I'll just upload the code written till now so that you guys can see what's written, and if you are building it yourself right now, you can just do it. Okay, so to get all the products, that part is easy. Product dot find all. Okay, and then we get all the products, in which case we do this dot status uh, 200 dot send products, catch if we get an error, in which case let's dot status 500 dot send message where we have error, could not retrieve the product, retrieve products. There we go. Then when we are adding a new product, we will product dot create a new product, where what do we need inside a product? So product needs an ID, a name, a manufacturer, and a price. Okay. ID would be coming from default values because it is auto increment. Name would come from rec dot body dot name. Manufacturer would come from rec dot body dot manufacturer, and we will have price equal to parse float rec dot body dot price. Why parse float is because the price in post request, every data goes as a string. Okay, rec dot body dot price will automatically turn into a string when I send it. So I need to make sure that I again parse it into a float. Otherwise, it will get saved to the DB in form of a string, which the DB will not accept because on string the price column is float. Correct. Um, so that's pretty much it. Okay. We write our dot then get a product. We send that back. Rest dot status 201 is for created. Dot send the product that we just created. Okay. So that sounds good. Except we need to do something also. We need to validate the values. What does validation mean? It means we need to check for something like this. So what if somebody sends me a post request where the price is not actually a float? What if it is some random string? Okay. So for example, let me just show you what I want to mean. For example, if I am talking about this thing, if I have let x equal to 10 point is string 10.4, okay, then I do parse float x, I get 10.4 as a float, and that's correct. But what if let y equal to rupees 20.4? Now, sorry, the thing is, with rupees in the beginning, it is not a valid float value now. So if I do parse float y, we get something called nan. But not a number cannot be checked with equal to like this, okay, because not a number is not really a value. It just means that it is not a number. It's like you cannot check whether infinity is equal to infinity because you don't know what is the value of infinity, right? So you cannot check the value of not a number like this. So that's why there is a function available in JavaScript called isNan. So we check isNan, and inside that, if we use the not a number stuff, so it tells us if it is true. Similarly, isNan parse float y, it tells us that parse float y is 9 is true. It means that y is not a valid float value. Okay. So if is 9 rec dot body dot price, in that case, we don't want to execute any rest of the function at all. We simply do we put this rest dot status 5, or we should put it as a 403 status. Okay. Send price is not valid number. Okay, so in that case, if our price is not valid, it will automatically do res.status 403 and send this error. And since I have written return in front of it, it means that any rest of the code after this part is not going to be executed. Okay, So we need to just make sure that the price is actually a float before doing this, because there's no point of trying to create a value in a database when we know that the price is not valid in the first place. Correct. So here we got the products path set up. So let's start our server again. Okay. And once the server is started, let's go and make a request to. So products. You will see a funny thing here is that if I have this terminal output here that you can see, database has been synchronized till here the output has come. Correct. Now if I make a query to API/products and we send this query, we have some problems. Let's see. Root.get, root.post, and API products require products. Sorry, I had a spelling mistake. My bad. Me send a request to API/products. We get an empty array here. And if you look at the log, you can see there is a SQL command that has been run. Select ID, name, manufacturer, price, created at, updated at from products. Okay, so this SQL query that we should have run has been run on our behalf by Sequelize. So we simply write the code which says product.findAll. Okay, and in respect with that, Sequelize is going to run this command for you. Okay, so that sounds nice, right? Then let's create some products here. Let's add some products. Okay. What do? We send a post request. In our body, we send a name, say pixel 2, and manufacturer is say Google, and price is say 65,000. Okay, and let's send this. So we have got ID 1, pixel 2, manufacturer Google, price 65,000 has been added. So let's try to say add pixel XL, where by mistake if I write say rupees 65,000, I write it like this. Okay, so by mistake I write a string, it's not a correct float value. Okay, and I send this. So I get 403 forbidden error, correct, and I get an error price is not a valid number. Okay, so my API does not accept values which are not valid, but if this value was valid, if it was say 70,000, pixel to XL Google, so send, and 201 created. Okay, let's send a get request again. We see there is first product pixel 2 and second product pixel 2 XL. So in a way our API is properly formed. We are able to add products, retrieve products. We are able to add users and retrieve users. Okay, so let's go and start building some of our front end part, because the backend is pretty much done. Our backend has a database. It can save users, it can save products, it can fetch those values, it can add new users, it can add new products. That's pretty much what you want your backend to do. Okay, so I'll just create a new git commit at this stage. Right. Then so we'll go to our front end part, which is inside the public folder, and we will be using Bootstrap and jQuery and everything here. So let's add all of that stuff. So let's go to Bootstrap. So how to use Bootstrap? So we'll add the CDN files. If you're using it over the internet, that's fine. We'll add these two lines for Bootstrap, CSS, and JS. Before that, we will add jQuery and popper.js. Cool. um, so let's start building our front end of our shop. So first we will show a list of products that are available at our shop. Okay. Um, how do we go about doing that? So let's start with div container. Then we add a row. We just add h1 shop. Yeah. This that we're doing, we can see how it looks like while we are developing it live also. Okay. Yeah. Here's how it looks like. Shop written there at the top. Let's put it in the center. Make it h2. I think there's a center. So you just see. Okay. And let's create another div. Div class row, and we give it an ID. Product list. Okay. Let's start creating a fake list of products first, and then we will connect it to our backend and actually get the real data. So if I write here So pixel 2, pixel 2 XL, this is how they look like. So let me just start off with some components and see how we can add some cards or something. So in Bootstrap we can create a card like this using class card. So create a card inside each product. Okay, let's see how that looks like. Okay, so it looks like a card like this. Let's give it some padding. The Bootstrap has some padding and so we have the M classes for margin and P classes for padding. Okay, uh, so we can add like this MT0, ML1 like that. So let's set some margin in the X direction. So it's some MX2. Okay, so this will get some margin in the left and right direction. Yeah, so you can see some margin here. Okay. I'll give some slight bit of padding in each of them. So they start looking like this. Maybe I should give P2. Okay, here we go. We got a card like this. And let's start adding some information, and then we'll add a price and we'll add a buy button. So let me just add a buy button at the end. So BR and let's add a buy button. Button class BTN button default buy. How does the buy button look like? Save the page. So here is how the buy button looks like. Let's give the buy button a color. Blue colored buy button looks good. Maybe we can set up a row here. Div class row. Inside that we will create div class call. So we'll divide it into two parts, one for writing the price and another for putting the button. So say rupees 65,000, maybe that's how it looks like. Rupees 65,000 and buy looks like this. And give it half of the space. Call 6. Or maybe you can give the button itself as something like this. Some margin and padding around here. Yeah, so rupees 65 by. I think the padding is too much, so let's give padding 1 maybe. Looks good. Right, rupees 65,000 and buy. Maybe you can increase the size of the price font, or make it bold. Okay. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So yeah, that's how each product card is gonna look like. Let's make the title and then add some manufacturer and all of that stuff. So let's make it H4 and pixel 2, and below that div class product name and product manufacturer. See how it looks like. So pixel 2 by Google, rupees 65,000 by. Okay, so this card looks pretty good. This is the layout to create this kind of a card. Pixel 2 by Google, the price, and so on. Okay. Great. So now what we're going to do is we will connect this with a Jquery script that will actually fetch the data from the backend and show it. So we'll write our script file, new this shop frontend.js. We will include that in our HTML. Script src shop frontend.js. Cool. And shop frontend. write all our stuff inside the dollar function, which makes it load after the window has loaded. Okay. So first of all, let's load the stuff like this. Product list. So product list is let product list equal to $id product list. Okay. Then let's create some functions to fetch stuff. Like let's create this function. Function fetch products. Done. Callback. What we'll do here is $.get /API/products. You'll send a get request here, and then there will be a callback function. Where we will have data. So what we'll do is we will call the done function with this data. Okay. So this data is basically all the products that we have fetched. So right. And let's create another function. So a function called create product card, which given a product object does something like this. It is going to create this entire item, right? What we'll do is return and create this item in this format. Yeah. Okay, so it's gonna when we call the dollar function like this, we call the dollar function by say calling it like p like this, so it creates a new element of this format. Okay, so we're just gonna create a new element of this format. And we will replace these things with product.name, this with product.manufacturer, and this with product.price. Okay, product name, product manufacturer, and product.price. Okay, so let's see how that goes. Then the first thing we will do here when our page has loaded is we will call fetch products, and inside fetch product we will get the products. And after we get the products, what we'll do is we will take product list dot empty, and after doing product list dot empty, we will do is for product of products, we will do product list dot append. We will append it with the result of this thing. We'll append it with create product card of this product. Okay, so just describe what we are doing here. So I've created a create a product card function. What this function does is it takes a product object and it returns how the product card going to look like. Okay, this is the purpose of this create product card function. And then there is this other function called fetch product list. And what this function does is it sends a get request to /API/ products. Okay, and it returns an array of products. Okay, each of them being a JSON object. Fine. So when our file loads, we take both of these two things together and we do find product list, and inside the callback we get all the products. So we run a for loop, we run a for each loop through products, and what we do is we take this product list div that we have, and one by one we add each product into it. Okay, creating a card for each product. Okay, so basically what happens is we send a get request to API/products. This returns us with an array of a lot of products. Okay, so we run a loop through this, which first item and then the second item and then the third item and so on. Okay, while doing that on our website, for each item from the list, we create a card with the product name and the description and the buy button, and we put it here. We take the second item and we create another card for it and we put it here, and so on we continue doing for all the products that we have fetched. Okay, so this is the idea that we want to do here. Okay, let's see if it works or not. For now, let's open the website. Yeah, so it will work when we open it via our Node.js project. So let's start our project again. Node server.js. Let's go to localhost 2678. Let's see if there are some console errors or not. So we have a problem that $.get is not a function because dollar is probably not defined properly. Let's see, did we not get jQuery? So we need to use the jQuery non-slim version. Okay, so we are using the Bootstrap does not require $.get and $.post function, so Bootstrap uses the slim version. Okay, as you can see here, slim version. So we do not want to use the slim version, we want to use the normal version. That one has the get and post and the Ajax stuff inside that. Okay, let's run that. If we use that, then we have to change the integrity hash also. Let's just delete the integrity hash. The integrity hash is for security purpose. It checks whether or not the correct file has been downloaded or not. I'm just removing that. Okay, so we got two items. That part was okay. And if you look at the network request, there was a network request to products, and the response had the Pixel 2 and the Pixel 2 XL. That part was fine, but the objects that were created did not have the proper items inside it. Okay, so why were they undefined? Let's just go and check out shop frontend.js. Because of a small typo here, it should be product, because I need to traverse through the list of each items. So products is the entire list, product is one item of it. Okay, so let's just refresh this, and there you go. So now this is working from actual data from the backend. Okay, and if I add more products, that will also show up. Okay, so let me just add the code to add new products also. Let's just see how that works. Okay. We don't need all of this example data that we are creating before. We don't need this part. We can delete this part. Our website would still work. Okay. So let's create a new page to add products. So normal HTML5 file, let us add all of this jQuery and Bootstrap stuff to it. Okay. Now what we can do is in our frontend JS also we can split it up. So what we can do is let us create another file called shop.js, and let's rename this shop frontend.js to say index.js. Okay. So what we'll do is in index.js we will take these two functions which are common shop related functions and put them inside shop.js, and inside index.js we will only have the files related to index.html. So index.html I will include index.js, and before that I need to include shop.js. Okay, because functions described inside shop.js are used inside index.js. So first require shop.js, and then we will basically include our index.js. Okay, index.js has this function. So let's just make sure that till now everything that changes we did are working. Okay, so everything is working till now. Now let's create a JS file for this add products page also. Inside add products, let's include first shop.js, and then let's include add products.js. Okay. So what do we do with add product.js? Let's add a form here. So how to create a form in Bootstrap. Bootstrap has a very nice way to create forms. So can create a nice little form here. We'll create a uh, first a container. Inside that form group. Okay, and then for each item we'll create a form group. Okay. So first form group is for name of the product. I'll just add a heading here first. Maybe H3. There's a way to center text also. Let's see. Content, typography, text center class is there. So, add product page is there. Cool. So write like this. We write a label for to add a label, and then we give a input type. Okay, and we can use a hint or something like that afterwards. So let's start off doing it like this. So we will have input type text name. So name is not even needed. So name is say name and id equal to product name. Okay, and we will have label for product name. Okay, so like this label for product name. This name, yeah, is not really required. You can just simply keep it like this: label for product name, input type text, id product name, and like that. Let's create more for the manufacturer. Okay, let's see how that looks like in our form. This should not be a row. This should be just this. Yeah. Product name, manufacturer. There we go. Let's add a price to this. So let's add a button here. Okay. Great. And give this button ID. Button product add. So we will start with this here. We'll create a function, and we can write simply this. So when the button is clicked, we will do something. What we will do is we'll go to shop.js and we will write our code on how to add products. Okay, so we have a create product card and we have fetch products. So let's add a function. Add product done. Takes name, manufacturer, and price. This is dollar dot post to slash API slash products with data where it will send name as name, manufacturer as price. Okay, then it will have a callback function. Inside the callback function, we'll just call done with this data. Okay, cool. And when we are adding products, we will basically call that function add product with. So let's do this. Let add product with product name dot value, product manufacturer dot val, and product price dot val. That, and after add product is done, in this function window dot alert added to database. Okay. So this add product function will run, and in the callback function we will create a window alert that added this product to the database. Cool. And this is the add product function basically. So let's see if that works for us or not. When the backend is done, I don't need to restart the server. I can simply restart it here and try it out. So let's say product name is iPhone X by Apple, and price is say 1 lakh. Added iPhone X to the database. Okay. Let's go to the original page now, products page. You see now iPhone has been added. Okay. So you can go to the add products page and keep adding products, or we can see the products on this page. So I'll just commit this part. Okay, so I will just leave this project in this state, and what you guys can do on your own is try to add functionality like adding products to the cart, and in that case we will have to use the user data. So we'll have to take which user is adding the data, and you can create a cart table where you will have to create the relation between a user ID and a product ID. So when a user buys a product, it will go to the cart, so you can create a cart page and then different people can see their carts. So that part is like an exercise for you guys, so try making that, how to add products to the cart. Okay, and this gives you a fairly good idea of how to use Sequelize and how to create a backend and a front end completely separate from each other, which talk only via JSON API. No HTML served by the server to the front end. Okay, front end is very separate. In fact, if you run the backend separately, you can actually run the front end HTML and JavaScript even on a separate computer on a separate place. Okay, just only thing is you will have to change the API calls here. The API calls are to/API/products. You will have to give the entire API products. So something like HTTP your server domain.com/API/products, like that. You have to give the entire path. Otherwise, the front end does not depend on the backend to fetch here, except it just takes data from the API. Okay. Uh, so I think yeah, that will be that. We still have socket.io and MongoDB left to cover in the upcoming classes. So MongoDB is another kind of database where there are no relations. We simply store data in form of JSON objects. So we'll see how to use that kind of a database, and we will see how to use socket.io to create real-time apps like a chat app, or some other apps where you do something on somebody's browser and the same change is reflected on the server or on somebody else's computer. Okay, real-time apps. So we'll see that in the next classes. So thank you.